the first time in its relatively short history, the Michelin Le Mans Cup visits Spain and Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya. Welcome indeed to this part of Catalunya and to this beautiful area of northeastern Spain. My name's Johnny Palmer, joined as always by Graham Goodwin for our coverage of the Michelin Le Mans Cup throughout 2019. Already stories have broken, Graham. We've had a couple of free practice sessions for these cars, split into two classes, and already we've had plenty of racing, of course, because last month, even though the ELMS was taking a break, the Michelin Le Mans Cup certainly wasn't, with two almost hour-long races during Le Mans week.
Absolutely. It's the festival atmosphere, isn't it, for the road to Le Mans, and more great racing for these cracking little grid of LMP3 and GT3 spec cars. In free practice one here, and you're right, absolutely the first time for the Michelin Le Mans Cup here at the Circuit de Catalunya. Though one or two of the teams have raced here in LMP3 cars in other series. But one major incident report, which is that we're not going to see one of the championship front runners, Johnny Palmer, after a huge accident in free practice one for the 25 London racing car, Mikey Benham. And if Mikey's listening this morning, he's still under observation at the local hospital, then, you know, get well soon, fella. I know it looks uninjured, but the size of the impact was such that quite correctly the doctors will want to keep an eye, make sure there's no further damage that's not apparent. Big accident, barrel rolled the car after an unsighted Mikey Benham over the top of another stationary car, barrel rolled the car and ended up upside down on the barriers, I'm afraid. So that car will play no more parts in this weekend's action. We'll move on and talk positives, because what remains, Johnny, is a very good grid indeed of little prototypes, the Nissan-powered LMP3 cars and the GT3 cars, and a number of little changes as well to the grid. But the headlines are going to be about the development of the championship this year.
Yeah, I thought it was sort of moot to mention Lannon, because they are championship table toppers at the moment, with 2 wins already in the 2-hour-long races. So Paul Ricard was 2 hours. Monza was 2 hours. This weekend also the sort of bread and butter part of the season before we go to Spa-Francorchamps and then Portimao. So they're all 120 minutes in duration. The Le Mans races were 55 minutes plus a lap effectively, and even at those races Lannon managed a pole position and some good results as well to keep their championship ticking over. They come here with an 8-point lead, but that's almost guaranteed to be, or certainly slashed and possibly overtaken by teams like DKR Engineering and Nielsen Racing, who are not very far away in the championship. Cars already starting to flood the pit lane then from the support paddock areas, and it'll be GT3s first of all then heading out onto track. 9 of them expected, one of which is the 51 Ferrari for Spirit of Race, the Swiss flagged team, although just scratch not very too deeply beneath the surface and you'll find a lot of of course team personnel there. Christoph Ulrich is down on my list to do the qualifying. If you've only got one bronze driver in your duo, then that automatically makes the decision for you as to who will qualify, because it's all the onus on the bronze driver. This session, by the way, starting bang on 9 o'clock local time, very early start, because we're having to cram in all the action for the Michelin Le Mans Cup today, plus all the action for the European Le Mans Series, because for the first time in its modern history, at the very least, the ELMS is going to be racing into the night this evening. Absolutely
right. So we've got both races, all the qualifying sessions, all packed into a single day schedule, and we'll be finishing very late on this evening. If you're going to be with us, not just on this live stream, but for the LMS too, get the coffee on, get the snacks in. There's going to be a heck of a lot of action and a lot to look forward to. I'm looking forward to spending time in a darkened room with Johnny Palmer for much of the day. That's always a plus, Johnny.
I didn't want to say too much, but so am I, in a way.
What? Time with yourself. But, but green flag as we get down to the essentials, and it will be the usual quick fire 15 minutes of GT3 qualifying. And it's developing a bit of a reputation, isn't it, Johnny, for pulling something out the bag, particularly towards the end of these sessions. It gets pretty frenetic. Already out on track is the number 54 Mercedes AMG. This is the SPS Automotive Performance Car, a full season addition to the Michelin Le Mans Cup this year, and it's Dexter Muller that should be at the wheel of the number 54 car, the dark grey and red coloured car. Also out on track the Scuderia Vallorba Corsa car. Kessel Racing's number 8 and the number 50. Streaming out now, the EB Motors Porsche. Here it is, the number 88 car, which has always been spectacular in qualifying since this car joined the championship last year. Fine addition to our ranks, and a brand new Porsche, by the way, for this season for the EB Motors pairing. And on the screens at the moment, it's telling us that it's Alessandro Beccani who will be taking it out. Did we see the Kessel car in that colour scheme last time out, Johnny? The number 8 car.
I don't think we did, actually.
It does look spectacular.
It does.
Clearly it's a variation on the theme of the cars we've got in the LMS, and it looks splendid.
Yes, with the same backers on the flanks, and as you say, it's we've got a dark Kessel blue car in the ELMS with the orange detailing. There's another one with pink detailing. This has the sort of white stripes where those colours would normally be. But yes, it looks fast standing still, really.
It
does. With the Italian tricolore on the rearing end plates as well. So Kessel Racing of Switzerland, of course, they raced at Le Mans for the first time as a Kessel Racing entry last month because they managed to win this championship in 2018, and that's the carrot effectively at the end of this. If you manage to win the GT3 part of the championship, there are LMP3s in this as well, by the way, and we'll get to those after this session, but if you manage to win the GT3 element of the championship, then an automatic entry for Le Mans 2020 beckons.
Absolutely huge prize for it. So let's tell you who's out there. In the number 7 Scuderia Vallorba Corsa Mercedes AMG, it is Roberto Pampanini. In the number 8 Kessel Racing car, the Ferrari 488 GT3, the car we've just been talking about, it will be Sergio Pianazzola. In the 35 Krypton car, that is one of the trio of Mercedes AMGs, it will be Marco Zanettini. John Hartshorn will be out the 50 Kessel Racing Ferrari. That's one of the red cars. 51 we've already seen on pit lane, Christoph Ulrich. Dexter Müller in the SPS Automotive 54 AMG. It will be Fabien Laverne, who's been spectacular all season. Number 71 Luzic Racing Ferrari. EB Motors, Alessandro Beccani is the choice, at least in this part of the session, for their Porsche 911 GT3R. The car we've not yet seen on track this morning, on picture at least, but we know he's out there. Andrew Howard will be aboard the beautiful number 99 Beechdean AMR Aston Martin GT3. We've got just under 12 minutes to the end of the session.
We talk about Fabien Laverne. He and Mikkel Mack have done tremendously well for the first part of the season. They lead the championship by 18 points, the number 71 car, from the Kessel Racing Ferrari number 8, car we're concentrating on at the moment. And it's the 51 Ferrari, third in the championship, on 36 points. But that 18-point lead, I'm sure everyone else is looking at that, wondering how on earth they're going to start to chip away at that advantage. We've had 2 pole positions for the Laverne and Mikkel Mack Ferrari, and also 3 race wins because they won both of the affairs at Le Mans and a victory at Monza. The only place that they've not been on the top step of the podium was Paul Ricard at the start of the year, when it was a 3rd place finish behind Kessel and behind Dexter Müller and Yannick Mettler's Mercedes.
Beginning to get some times through, Johnny.
Yes,
and
we
the
are.
first one to show is Sergio Piazzolla, a 1:48.181 in the number 8 Kessel Racing car. That's much quicker than anybody else's offer. But as we've seen previously, particularly with these gentleman drivers, the bronze-rated drivers, they will get quicker and quicker as this session progresses. It's unusual not to see that progression. So it's Pianazzola from Beccani, from Pampanini, from John Hartshorn at the moment, but a pretty big spread of lap times amongst those 5 cars that have completed a flying lap.
This is a 4.6 kilometre circuit, by the way, and a good mixture of left and right turns, 7 left-handers, 9 right-handers, it being a clockwise circuit. And there's about 30 metres of elevation change as well. You don't often think that about this place, but I'd managed to grab a little bit of spectator time late last night with the evening ELMS session running from 9:30 local time into the full darkness with an 11 o'clock finish, and certainly that run into turn 10 is very dramatic as they come from high speed out of the kink at 9 into 10, and then such a technical end to the lap, which is exactly where the 35 car of Pazuki is currently negotiating. So the Krypton Motorsport Mercedes comes across the line, and Stefano Pizzucchi will go top, in fact, by 0.2 of a second. So Mercedes from Ferrari, that's Pianazzola's Kessel Racing Ferrari, and Ebi Motors and their Porsche make it 3 different manufacturers in the top 3.
Yeah, Pianazzola on a much quicker lap right now, and immediately goes back to the top by a full second, 1.095 into the 46s, 146.861. We said this would progress, and it's going to. Fabien Laverne, by the way, just out of pit lane and on his first flyer right now. So we're going to start to see those changes. It's Pianazzola in the 8 Kessel Racing car from the 35 AMG. Then the number 7 Valor Corsa AMG pops up into third. 146, 147, 149. The progression down the timing screens with just under 9 minutes to go in the session.
That tricky chicane at turns 14 and 15 has just been negotiated by the red and black Mercedes then, that finished second at Paul Ricard, and it goes over the line now. And we put into the number 54, was it Dexter Muller that you said?
Yes, it was. Yep.
And he goes third. The only choice actually to be made, i.e. teams with 2 bronze drivers, was that 35 Krypton Motorsport Mercedes. They could have gone the route of Marco Zanettini, but it's Stefano Pizzucchi. I don't believe there's anything in the regulations that says they couldn't switch drivers partway through. It's just the time, really, because as you say, eating away very quickly, just 8 minutes to go now.
I have to say, only just noticed that EB Motors have pitted the car, by the way, and I was expecting to correct you there, but I'm not going to, because I'd be wrong, because Ricardo Pera has joined that squad for this race. It's not 2 bronze drivers aboard the 88 car, so Pagani has pitted the car. Pianazzola, by the way, is going quicker in the first sector than he did last time around. It's an improvement and a significant one from Pizzucchi, now under 4/10 back from Pianazzola, as we wait for the current provisional pole sitting 8th Ferrari to complete its latest lap. So the time's beginning to compress. Everybody's now set a flying lap time, and highly unusually, Johnny Palmer, for one of these qualifying sessions, we've not had a lap deleted yet.
That's true, actually, and there is quite a bit of runoff area around here as well, particularly if you run too deep at turn 10. You can either go over a very large area of paved concrete, red concrete, which has the title Circuit de Barcelona emblazoned on it, or if you go so far deep into 10, you actually find another bit of the circuit, and that can serve as your route back to it. But I noticed they put in some bollards. You might get to see it actually just to the right. No, it's just off screen, but to the right there are some plastic bollards that you have to weave through to make sure that your lap time isn't actually bettered by taking the longer section.
Fabien Laverne up into third place and improving on this lap again. It's been a further improvement though from Pianazzola. He stretches the advantage back up to almost 0.6 of a second, and 146.657 plays Pizzucchi's 147.2 and a 147.8 before the lap is on from Fabien Laverne, but he's going to do better this time, currently 1.1 seconds back. That translates back to 0.6 of a second. He is 100th of a second back from the second place car and a front row position with 6 minutes remaining in this session.
Yeah, and the 51 Ferrari of Christoph Ulrich starts another lap by weaving between turns 1 and 2. This is the area of the track that starts to climb up then towards turn 3, the almost never-ending turn 3, and then just as you hit the breaking point into 4, now that's the end of the first sector that we will talk about, I'm sure, during the remainder of this session, the next one for LMP3, and during the race as well, because the track split into 3 different sector points. That gives us a good indication of who might be onto something rather special. Andrew Howard in his Aston Martin Vantage AMR now coming out of 7 and 8. There are 2 corners there because you sort of straighten up at 7 and then there's a little tiny kink that you have to go through at 8 before then blasting towards 9, a very fast right-hander, particularly when we get to the prototypes.
Yeah, Andrew learning all the time in this car. Unique, of course, in the Michelin Le Mans Cup. It's the first time we've seen the new shape of Aston Martin Vantage in anything other than the FIWC and ACO Rules Racing to this point. That will change when we get into the WC Prologue early next week here at Barcelona. The team's already gathering. The trucks are just beginning to gather in the car parks beyond the circuit's entrance. But for the time being, if you're interested in ACO Rules Racing and a GT3 spec Aston Martin, Beechdean is it. Fabien Laverne, by the way, is on a flyer at the moment. I think he's going to be coming close to that pole time. Pizzucchi has closed the gap again to 147.0. Laverne goes top though, 0.159. So it's a 1:46.498 to Fabien Laverne. Piazzolla has got some work to do.
So this could be the 71's third pole position of the year. They've only taken one pole, have Laverne and Mikkel Mack, in the 2-hour type races. But so far so good for 71 Ferrari, and this is going to be an awesome duel, I think, for the rest of the season, actually, between the 71 and the 8 Ferraris of Lucich and Kessel. The Ebby Motors Porsche, though, number 88, just coming through the final few corners of the lap, downhill towards the chicane at 14 and 15, and Ebby Motors looking to try and improve on its 8th place currently. Alessandro Baccani all over the curbs there, looks very spectacular, isn't particularly very fast though, and now over the grid hatchings with 3 3/4 minutes to go. The Ebby Motors Porsche will go 4th. So Baccani back into almost the box seat there. A second row start he's looking at, and the outside of the second row. It's an all Ferrari front row though, with a couple of 488s there. Fabien Laverne's example, just turning left now at turn 10, and Sergio Pianezzola, who is the defending champion, let us not forget, with Giacomo Pacini. Actually, he doesn't always race with Giacomo, does he? Is it normally Andrea Pacini that joins Sergio Pianezzola? I think they mix and match a little bit with the brothers.
Mixed and matched a little bit. Fabien Laverne, that's 1:46.496. Quicker first sector, but not as quick in the second sector. He's coming through now and look pretty racy coming through the final turn as he closes in on the start-finish line. There is, though, no improvement, but it's only a matter of hundredths. Watching Baccani, because this is a quick lap from him. How strong the Porsche is in the middle sector. Pizzucci too is on a flyer. Pianezzola not improving this time around.
It has been Giacomo all season. I'm slightly confused as to whether it was him last year now that was the champion with Pianezzola. It was certainly Sergio, because he got a Le Mans drive out of it as well. 2 minutes 20 to go, and the Krypton Motorsport Mercedes then powering its way down towards turn number 1. Stefano Pizzucchi hitting the curb there and briefly unsettling the car as Alessandro Baccani's at the other end of the circuit and reaching turns 14 and 15. You've got to be so careful through that high-speed chicane, because there are curbs, there are sausage curbs on the apex that could ruin suspension as the 88 goes second now. So this is great. As you pointed out at the start of the session, these bronze drivers getting faster and faster. Just 32 thousandths of a second now between Laverne and Baccani, and he's still on it on this next lap.
In fact, the top 4 separated by less than 2/10 of a second. It's 0.032 Laverne from Baccani, and Laverne will not improve on the last lap time. That was lap time under investigation. So 32 thousandths of a second, just behind Pianezzola. Still that 0.159 of a second behind the pole-sitting car at the moment, but now with a car between them and closing in on him too, and going quicker again this time. Pizzucci is, what is that, 100th of a second back from the third place car. So any one of these top 4 could end up as our pole position sitter.
Yeah, and as you say, less than 2/10 of a second between the top 4. Then there's a slightly larger gap back to Dexter Muller's time for SPS Automotive Performance. That's another AMG GT3. Christoph Ulrich is currently in 6th position, ahead of Roberto Pampanini in the Scuderia Villorba Corsa Mercedes, number 7. That's the one that's very difficult to miss, because it is bright gold with black details.
Pizzucci, I think, is going to improve here. I cannot see this being anything other than improvement. He goes top. He goes to pole. It's a 1:46.355, 0.143 of a second, and 2/10 of a second separating the top 4. Becomes 3/10 of a second separating the top 4, but it's the 4th place car before that lap that leapfrogged the 3 ahead. 1:46.355 with just 20 seconds left on the clock is the target.
Krypton Motorsport engineer now, the team manager, will have his eyes trained to the bottom of the screen to make sure there's no issue about track limits for that 35 car. Over the line goes Alessandro Baccani. It's an absolute best through the 3rd sector, but still not quite good enough to give him back the front row.
But he did get through and will have the opportunity to go for another lap should he choose to do so. It's just 300ths of a second off his best lap. There's time there in that Porsche, isn't there, without a shadow of a doubt. But it looks to me like perhaps, well, maybe Laverne is fighting back. It's a quick lap from Laverne, maybe not ultimately quick, but a good final sector might get this done. Piazzolla, meanwhile, comes through to complete his session, having topped the times early on. He's matched the first sector time of the pole-sitting car to the 1,000th on this lap, but is that going to be quick enough?
Well, a very good effort and a great basis to start your lap time from. 2 other cars have since crossed the line, by the way. No improvement for Dexter Muller. There was an improvement for John Hartshorn towards the end as well, but that car number 50 will stay in 9th place.
No improvement for Fabien Laverne. He will finish no better than 2nd place on the front row at the moment, but the margins are very tight. I think the only car behind him that's got an opportunity to overhaul is Sergio Piazzolla. Both cars, 3rd and 4th place, the EB Motors car and the Kessel Racing car, improved their best second sectors. So this is going to go right down to the wire.
So watching out for the 88 Alessandro Baccani Porsche, the Kessel Racing Ferrari of Sergio Piazzolla. This car could certainly snatch pole. He's a little bit sideways coming out of turn 15 though, almost crossed up, and that might affect his route through the final corner. Over the line then goes the number 8 car. He's to second.
Oof.
Second position, and only 39 thousandths of a second now between Pizzucchi's Mercedes and Piazzolla's Ferrari. Everybody else is home, and that was the only car to improve on the final tour. Intriguingly, there were different cars setting the absolute best through each sector, and none of them with a pole sitter.
Absolutely amazing. Pizzucchi did it with stringing together a brilliant lap.
Yeah.
Piazzolla, you're quite right, 39 thousandths of a second back, second position, but on the front row for the number 8 Kessel Racing Ferrari. That car setting the fastest sector one time, 3rd on the grid, on the 2nd row of the grid. Fabien Laverne could do no better than that in the 71 Luzic Racing Ferrari. That car setting the fastest 2nd sector, 0.143 off the pole, 0.1 of a second from the front row, and behind just 300ths a second back from 3rd in 4th position, the number 88 EB Motors Porsche of Alessandro Baccani. That car setting the fastest 3rd sector time. Amazing stuff. Again, you know, it's a small but perfectly formed grid of GT3 cars, but it never fails to provide something in the dying moments of these qualifying sessions.
But also, you watch one session in this championship, you can't then say, well, that's how the rest of the season is going to be, because it's so difficult to read. People are improving, but at different rates, and also, I mean, that's within session, but also across the season as well. 39 thousandths of a second then separates the poleman, Stefano Pizzucchi, from Sergio Piazzolla, who is not quite the championship leader. They are 2nd, remember, and this is potentially a chance to pick up some points then from the car behind them on the grid, the 71 Luzic Racing car. EB Motors will start from 4th position. The SPS Automotive Performance Mercedes will start from 5th, and 6th place for Spirit of Race car 51. We must get some reaction from that session though. Let's join Louise Beckett now in the pit lane for us.
Yes, Stefano Pizzucchi is just getting some drinks on because, or getting some drinks in because it's a hot session out there, and right to the last moment taking the pole.
Yes, yesterday was for us a tricky day because I did only 2 chrono time. And we had some problem with the car, but the guys solved the problem in the night, and the car was good now, and the result is good also.
And looking forward to the race later, obviously.
Sorry?
What can we expect for the race later?
To do our best, and we will see.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, of course, qualifying is one thing and racing completely something else, and they've got to sustain that pace for 2 hours. Pizzucchi, it's likely he will do 55, maybe 56 or 57 minutes, depending on when they want to switch to driver B in that car. But it will be Marco Zanettini joining him in the dramatically liveried Krypton Motorsport Mercedes in that matte black finish with the bright green, a day-glow green surrounds of the large front grille on the AMG GT3s and on the rear wing end plates as well. Great looking car, and it's fast this weekend as well.
Not going to have very much longer to wait for that race, but they're going to have to wait until after the qualifying for the LMP3 cars. That's next up. 20 cars to come. Be a rather more crowded session as it usually is. Watch looking back at the action from that session. It's going to be a close race again, Johnny Palmer in GT.
I think it is, yeah, certainly. And I mean, 9 cars is a good amount. Again, we're going to have the situation where some cars come good later on in the race, but then again, with most teams having either a bronze and silver or indeed a bronze and gold combination, do they put the bronze in at the start of the race or at the end? And that would suggest that, well, if we have a late safety car, then generally teams go with their quicker driver to finish the race, just to make sure that if the field is bunched up because of a safety car, you've got a gun driver to lean on for the run to the flag. But each driver must do 55 minutes of drive time, so there's effectively a window in the middle of the race between 55 and 65 minutes, which can be stretched at times. The race itself due to start at 1 o'clock local time through till 3 p.m. When it's going to be very, very warm indeed here at Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya. Great for us to be visiting Spain for the first time for the Michelin Le Mans Cup, and you've got to go back to 2009 for what was then called the Le Mans Series for its last visit to Barcelona.
Absolutely. Rack my brains about anything here that actually I remember from being here back in 2009.
Oh, you were here that weekend?
I was here that weekend.
Good stuff.
It was highly unusual for to miss a Le Mans Series race in those days, but looking forward to just how these LMP3 cars handle this circuit. Always good to get another circuit on the books, isn't it?
Yes, and of course LMP3 wasn't even a twinkle in the eye in those days, and it's still very much a new category. New cars on the way.
And one of them here. We've
Excellent.
got the new Ligier is on display here in the paddock, the JSP 320. News yesterday, while we wait for these cars to hit the track, of another part of the package to come for next season as well, with an announcement after track action or before the night practice yesterday of the Ligier European Series, which will join the LMS at 5 of the 6 rounds next season for the, if you like, the little sister of these cars, the JSP3, so JSP4 prototypes and the rather newer JS2R GT one-make cars in their own series, supporting 5 of the 6 ELMS rounds, not yet determined which they're going to miss. But expecting something like 20 cars across the 2 classes, and a stepping stone in, if you like, an early stepping stone into mixed class racing. GS2R already with 20 plus car grids in the domestic series in France, and I think we can expect all of those cars to double up or transfer to the European circuit. Tony Wells and Colin Noble there. Norma, it will be Tony aboard that car, I'm sure. Has to be.
Yes, because Colin Noble, the silver driver. The Graf crew are here again, number 39, Adrian Schiller and Nicolas Schatz, the multi-French hill climb champions. So it'll be Schiller doing the qualifying. We also caught a glimpse a moment or two ago of Kio Racing, number 43, with 2 new drivers this weekend. Alain Costa, certainly not new to the Michelin Le Mans Cup, but it's a switch around for Kio Racing personnel, and joined by Danish driver Johan Jokinen, who is silver. So Alain Costa to do the qualifying. This is the car, in fact, and Costa already installed and ready to go.
96 car, Cool Racing. Fabulous finish on that car. The aero paint on the car, it does pop. I have to say, you can immediately see these cars as they come past being fundamentally different looking than traditionally vinyl cars. No mistaking the pit lane marshals, bright yellow overalls.
Yeah, Royal Automobile Club Catalunya, RACC, emblazoned on the back of their overalls, and indeed all the way around this track, and the familiar very, very tall scoring tower as well, which helps the spectators to update them with where the car sits in the session. This will be, again, 15 minutes of qualifying, but as Graham mentions, for 20 cars. So around a 4.5 kilometre circuit. It's going to be tricky just to find a little bit of real estate to ensure that you've got the chance to put in a good lap time. It's a long straight here, so possibly to have a runner with you to punch that air in the hole in the air ahead of you might be key.
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pit exit is green. Qualifying has started.
You can set your watch by Eduardo Freitas, the race director. of Portugal, and now lots and lots of LMP3s are going to launch their way onto the Barcelona asphalt. But as I say, if you're stuck in this queue, the difficulty is going to be when you get into the downforce corners, because even from spectating for about half an hour yesterday into turn 10, if you're right behind somebody, the car behind is all over the place because the air is that kind of flustered over the first car, and it just does not flow right over your car behind.
So 15 minutes ahead of us of the automotive equivalent of shaking 20 marbles in a jar. The LMP3 cars hit the track. Early takers. Most of the cars, in fact, straight out. Drivers we're going to expect to see. The number 2 car, Nielsen Racing, will be Tony Wells. It is John Schaumann in the number 4 Cool Racing car. Nielsen Racing, sorry, for Tony Wells. It is Merrick Toto in the number 5 DK Engineering car. Another car that was in trouble yesterday. 9's Graf car is Trullier. And James Dayson in the 14 RLR car. That's a new addition for this weekend. Mark Crader, we saw the number 20 car. That's attractively grey-coloured Norma. Grey Market Racing. United's cars, Jim Maguire in the 22. Hodes in the 23. Mike Guash in the 24. There will be no London Racing car, I'm afraid, in this session. Glenn Chiller, 39. Costa, as we heard, in the 43. Claudia Sedanovic in the 55 Sprinter race car. And Alexander Talkanitsa Jr., the 9080 racing car. Eric de Donker in the number 98 Motorsport 98 car that rejoins the championship here.
3 different cars have been on pole position so far in the Michelin Le Mans Cup this season. Francois Kerman and Laurence Heur in their Norma M30 on 2 separate occasions. That's the number 3 car, and it'll be Francois to do the qualifying in this session. Monza, we had Michael Markussen and his teammate Joachim Fried in the number 43 machine taking pole position. So that was a Kia Racing effort in a Ligier taking pole at Monza, and then Mikey Benham and Duncan Tappy took pole for the second Road to Le Mans race. But it really has been the story of Norma's in the races, because it's been 2 different wins, or rather 2 wins so far for Benham and Tappy at Ricard and Monza, and then at Le Mans, Norma's again, but Graf with a victory, number 39, and the 3 car for DKR Engineering of Francois Kerman and Laurence Heur. I think it's going to be much of the same thing here. Ligiers may be infiltrating the top 6, but they're going to struggle to win this race. We will wait and see. I think they might struggle to touch down this very long straight, though, that funnels then down into turns 1 and 2.
Yep, number 1, 2, 3 in free practice 1. We've lost one of those cars with the exit stage right of the Lannon car, and it was Norma ahead of the 43 Kia Racing Ligier in free practice 2. Quick times, 41 to the 42s. That's what we're going to be looking for from this stream of LMP3s.
And a good result this weekend for Francois Kerman and Laurence Heur could well give them the championship lead then, heading to Spa-Francorchamps as the next round. These cars do not go to Silverstone, remember, at the end of August as part of the ELMS and World Endurance Championship double bill. So effectively a month off for August, then to Spa in September, and to Portimao in the south of Portugal at the end of October. But the sun is blazing down here already at, what are we, nearly 9:30 in the morning. It's going to get hotter, and it's going to get very, very busy today as well, with full days racing, and I mean that for the very definition of the word. We're racing till 10:30 tonight with the European Le Mans Series, but already minutes into this session and time starting to come in, Graham.
There are indeed not yet very significant times, but top of the tree at the moment, Racing Experience, the number 11 car, that with a 1:46.7 ahead of a 1:47.4 for the 30 CD Sports. Norma leads Norma. Then the 2 Cool Racing cars, 96 and 74. The quicker times will come from the second lap onwards here, I'm pretty certain of that. Number 2, in the meantime, on screen at the moment, that is Tony Wells. 1:52 from Tony. That car will surely go quick, and I think that's Tony giving himself space to improve, just backing off from the trainer cars ahead.
Perhaps no surprise to see Francois Kerman going very strongly through the first sector, though. The 31-year-old Frenchman from Strasbourg. We've already got a car off, though. That's the other DKR engineering machine. So talk about Francois Kerman. This is the 5 machine of Marcello Martiotto.
It is.
And almost against the wall. Might have just glanced the tyres, actually. And that was, I think, fairly early in the lap. The yellow flags have cleared now.
So
Might have been on the exit of turn 3, actually. So as he pushed for a first quick lap, and maybe the Michelin tyres weren't quite up to temperature. Clobbering the curb towards the end of the lap, though, Francois Kerman in the orange and black DKR engineering machine. I'm sure this car will go to the top, and it does, by 1.2 seconds. So Francois Kerman in car number 3, second in the championship, already to provisional pole position.
yeah, that's the first representative time, 1:42.949, 3 purple sectors, and puts 1.2 seconds over the Racing Experience, the number 11 car. That's another car that's got a mix of drivers for the season. Nicolas Melin is aboard that car. And, so it's now Norma's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in the order.
Yeah, that was sort of my fear for Ligier. I still think we're going to get 1 or 2
Oh, we will.
better times from Ligier. It looks far worse than it is right now. However, the number 39 Graf car, one of the winners during the Road to Le Mans event, now comes out of turns 14 and 15 at the chicane, hugging the curb towards the end of the lap. And
Fastest middle sector of the session so far from Adrian Chiller, crosses the line now and goes second. It's just 0.470 of a second. Lots of time left in this session. It's an improvement, by the way, for Kerman, the provisional pole setter in both sectors, first 2 sectors of the lap he's currently on. But beyond that, almost the entire screen is blue sectors. Everybody's improving, but that will only work if Kerman gives them the opportunity to eat into the advantage he's got. And that doesn't look like happening at the moment, otherwise, like, literally as I say it, isn't that traditionally the case? Adrian Chiller does just that in sector 1, so Chiller is going to provide a challenge for pole on this lap. Number 11 car, Melin, improves lap time on that lap, but is still 0.8 of a second back. Number 5 DKR Engineering, Norma, that's the car that spent time off track a little earlier. Big lock-up again from Martiotto. He's not on a good start. It's the same incident.
yes, it is.
Same incident.
And it was at turn 3, I reckon.
Yeah, missed the wall.
Just, yes. And actually favoured going through the gravel with his right side Michelin tyres. Ooh, a little bit squirrely, though, coming out of turn 15. So that will compromise his straight line speed then, heading down the main straight. Martiotto currently 18th, and it is an improvement to 4th position.
Wow.
For Marcello Martiotto. Very impressive, and that was with a mistake at turn 15, as I say. Not the best of exits there, so there is still room for improvement with 6 minutes and 50 seconds to go.
Here comes Adrian Chiller, and this is a quick lap. Lost a little bit of time to the pole sitter in the provisional pole sitter in the middle sector. Let's see, it was 0.470 a second. That becomes 0.3 of a second. He just chips away a couple of tenths to the advantage of Francois Kerman ahead. It's still DKR number 3 from the Graf number 39, then the number 11 Racing Experience car, and improving to 4th and quickest of the Ligiers, Alexander Talkanitsa Jr. on the second row at the moment, the number 9080 Racing Ligier JSP3.
Nicolas Melin in the number 11 car, joining Gary Hauser this weekend then at Racing Experience. We saw Melin during the Road to Le Mans event as well, where he shared with David Hauser, who's Gary's brother. The Hausers from Luxembourg, and historically in hill climbing rather than circuit racing, but nevertheless have lended themselves to this very nicely. Indeed,
and he improves the time for that car, goes back up to 3rd position, because that position had just been taken by Tony Wells in the fast improving number 2 Nielsen Racing car. So we're back to a top 4, all Norma top 4, Kerman, Chiller, Melin, Wells, then Talkanitsa Jr. and Martiotto, currently forming what would become row 3. Eric de Donker improves to 8th from nowhere in that session. We are 5.5 minutes from the checkered flag.
And James Dayson in the number 14 car will be sharing with Christian Olsen come the race. This is the RLRM Sport entry with a Ligier, just heading towards the final part of the circuit, turn 13, the right-hander, which sends you downhill and then straight into this really tricky chicane. Fine if you're on your own, but I think that could become a real bottleneck during the race, and good for the cars to have run in traffic yesterday to know where they can and can't overtake. That car is over the line, and James Dayson does improve. That car is now in 12th position with less than 5 minutes to go.
Adrian Schiller does not manage to improve despite setting the fastest middle sector of the session. One man that does, though, Maurice Smith, pops up 6th quickest, so the third row is an all-Ligier affair now with Talkanitsa Jr. and Maurice Smith, AT Racing and Cool Racing's number 74 car. So Norma's top 4, then 2 Ligiers, then a couple more Normas.
Tony Wells, 0.7 of a second away, crosses the line, but that's no improvement for the man from Middlesbrough. 4th place so far then for Nielsen Racing, and their other car, the Grain Market Racing Machine, is 10th. That's number 20 with Mark Crader doing the qualifying.
Yeah, I'm keeping an eye on Maritiotto. It's a quick lap from Maritiotto, currently 7th place after that troubled start to the session. Has been recovering time since then. He's currently 1:44.434, 7th quickest, 1.5 seconds, or a bit of tick back from the pole position car, but I think it's going to improve this time around. He's in his final sector, so we watch the number 90 car, currently the quickest of the Ligiers, Talkanitsa Jr. in 5th place. Reasonably quick on this lap, but not, I don't think, a lap where we're going to see him improve. Maritiotto, though, does improve, and he takes the 5th place from Talkanitsa Jr. It's now 1 through 5 positions on the grid to the Normas. And Maritiotto shaved 3/10 of that, so still over a second back. I think he's still got time to find in that car.
Yeah, I hope the fact that Alexander Talkanitsa Jr. is shown on our screen is just an error, because Talkanitsa Jr. a silver driver and therefore not allowed to take part in this qualifying session, but it may well be just a driver ID issue, which sometimes also carries a bit of a ticking off from the clerk of the course and organisers, but it should be Talkanitsa Senior, the 2 Belarusians, father and son team, who drive in the number 90 car.
It tends to come with a little letter that says, please pay this amount of euros.
Yes. Well, we'll wait and see. The car's certainly going well, as you say. Best Ligier so far, as Tony Wells improves on that lap and switches from one side of row 2 to the other, because the number 2 car is from 4th to now 3rd position. And I'm intrigued as to what Adrian Schiller can do, because he can certainly go through the first sector very impressively indeed. Our little chart says potentially a pole position if he can carry that pace on through, but so far Schiller's not managed to do that in sectors 2 and 3.
Improvement 2 from the number 30 CD Sport car, Jack Wolf. He pops up into 5th position, so we're back, Johnny Palmer, to 1 to 6, all Normas.
Yes.
After the Ligiers managed to just edge into that, Alexander Talkanitsa Jr. and Maurice Smith were in amongst them. Improvement coming too, by the way, last time around from Mark Crader. He's now within the top 10 in the number 20 Grain Market Racing Norma, operated by Nielsen Racing for the team. But we've got a couple of guys going very quickly on this lap. I don't think we've seen this session done as we get into the last 90 seconds or so.
No, well, the previous ones of this season would certainly tell us not to take our eyes off the screen just yet. 43, still these drivers getting used to Keo Racing. As I say, they are new for this season, with Keo having run different pilots up until this point. But Johan Jokinen, we will see in the race, the Danish driver, and the Monegasque, Alain Costa, doing the qualifying. Over the line then goes car number 43. There's also some shuffling of the order as Talkanitsa Jr. now goes to 5th position in his Ligier. So just starting to tick off those Normas when and where possible. 4 of them still quickest.
Going to get one more go at this into the final minutes before we see the checkered flag. Of course, they'll be allowed to finish the laps they're on from there on in. Further improvements coming. Tony Wells improves again edges back just less than a 10th, in fact, I think, on that lap, but consolidates his 3rd quickest lap. Talkanitsa Jr., quite right, Jimmy Palmer, up into 5th position, but there's blue sector times coming in that top 5, 6, 7 cars, and others that do look as if there might be something more to offer here. Eric de Donker on a quicker lap at the moment. He might well improve, and out of nowhere, Tony Wells all of a sudden sets a purple first sector with 17 seconds to go on the clock. Is he going to pull something out the back here?
And also, Adrian Schiller could be 0.3 of a second up on his previous time. I mentioned that the first sector was very good, has been very good for Adrian Schiller, the man from Montpellier. And this middle sector, highly impressive. If he can keep it all together now with probably a clear track in front of him, let's see what car 39 can do, and others behind.
Well, Kearman is not going to improve. He's on pit lane. Here comes the number 39 Graf car. This is the end of the session. It was a purple middle sector. What can he do to close it? He goes top. He does. It's a 1:42.895.054. But Tony Wells is now on the third sector. He's going quickly as well, and I think he might improve here.
Well, heading now through turn 12, and this is the really tricky bit where you can either gain a load of time or lose it. Very neat and tidy through the first part of the chicane and keeps it stable on the exit as well. Careful not to run out too far wide out the chicane to clobber that sausage curb. But the number 2 car, is it going to be pole? Is it going to be second? It is an improvement, but he stays third, Tony Wells. So it will be a second row start, the inside of row 2, and probably alongside Nicolas Mellat, yes, as he crosses the line in the number 11 Racing Experience.
And the margin 1 to 2 was again under 1/10 of a second. The margin 1 to 3 under 0.2 of a second. It's 0.143 of a second is the gap between the first and third on the grid. Adrian Schiller it was then, pole position, Johnny Palmer for the number 39 Graf car. From the DKR Engineering number 3 car, Francois Kearman, who was just shown as leaving the pits. Rather
That's
oddly.
interesting. Yes, on an outlap.
On an outlap after the checkered flag. That might just be a centre thing. He's on his way back to the scrutineering bay. But that's the top 2 and the front row from Tony Wells and the number 11 Racing Experience car. It will be an all-normer top 4 and first 2 rows ahead of Alexander Talkanitsa Jr. It shows, and you're quite right, it shouldn't, for the number 90-80 Racing Squad, 5th position, and then Jacques Wolf in the number 30 CD Sport Norma completing the 3rd row.
Yeah, I just wonder whether that's sort of Alexander Talkanitsa Jr.'s pace as well. So maybe it is him in the car, and they've done that in error, and that's you and I calling them out. But we will wait and see. Because it could it's either a timing glitch or it's a genuine problem for the number 90 crew rather, AT Racing. There is a bit of a queue for cars then heading into a very long pit lane here, but as always the Michelin Le Mans Cup teams are having to work in a satellite type fashion with the garages taken up by the ELMS teams, so they have to park out front and bring tyre trolleys and all the other necessary equipment from another area of the paddock. So it's a bit of an effort, but once you are based and in position for a 1 o'clock start later on today, then all should be fine. A mandatory pit stop, remember, to be taken, well, at any point in the race, we have learned. However, each driver has to do a 55-minute stint, a minimum of 55 minutes. So that's why we tend to see this pit stop somewhere around the hour mark. However, we've seen the mandatory timed pit stop done very early in the race, and they did a driver one team did a driver change later on
and quickly.
Quick step speed, and still managed to get the driver in for 55 minutes, and that was fine. So it can be cut some different ways, and that was a surprise to you and me, I remember at the time.
I think the answer is we might well see that change in the regulations next year, because I think that rather surprised
really?
I think it probably did.
Surprised the officials.
It was tactical. They took an advantage of where we were in terms of a caution period and weather at the time, and there could have been an advantage to be drawn there.
Yeah.
So it's clearly not the way in which it's intended to happen, but the rules are the rules.
Full marks for knowing your regulations and knowing that there may be some little loopholes that you can gain from, certainly. Great driving for Adrian Schiller, though, because the 39 car has taken pole position, and it will start alongside the DKR engineering machine then of Francois Kearman and Laurence Heuer, who are very, very neatly placed in the championship currently and set to score well with, sadly, it'll be a non-start for Landon Racing. They did not qualify in that session. The car far too badly damaged, and sadly a driver in hospital overnight as well. But we're wishing Mikey Benham all the best in his recovery. Tony Wells and Nicolas Mellat will start on the second row for Nielsen Racing and Racing Experience respectively. Alexander Talkanitsa's name is now displayed on the screen, I noticed, so maybe that has been been corrected.
Let's hope so.
And all is fine, and that qualifying time should stand then, which is exactly 1 minute and 44 seconds for the fastest Ligier, ahead of CD Sports Norma and the DKR Engineering number 5 for a dramatic Marcello Marattiotto, who was off track in the early part of the session, but certainly corrected his times towards the end to qualify in 7th place. So that is the way things will be for later on today. A huge grid for the Michelin Le Mans Cup as we go back to the 2-hour races here in Spain, Spa-Francorchamps in a couple of months' time, and Portimao, of course. And there are 2 championships to be decided. 4 if you count the drivers as well, of course. It'll be much, much warmer later on today. But we are guaranteed a cracking race in the GT3s, and can Ligier start to take the fight to the Normas come this latest round of the Michelin Le Mans Cup? Adrien Schiller and Francois Kerman showing their speed as bronze drivers for the French and Luxembourgish squads respectively, Graf versus DKR Engineering. Be sure to join us a little bit later on for ELMS action certainly, but for this race as well, which starts at 1 o'clock. We'll speak to you then. Bye bye for now.